What's up, guys? It is Dan from FightWave, and today I'm joined by somebody that, might I add, I'm very excited to speak with him. I spoke with him a few weeks back when there was some crazy stuff unfolding. A lot of controversy surrounding his main event on HEX Fight Series 28. None by his own doing, but I am more than ecstatic today to be joined by the man of the hour across the entirety of Aussie MMA. The man who went in there, despite what the odds makers said, went in there and put on an amazing performance. Today I'm joined by the captain and new HEX welterweight champion, Jono Micallef. How are we doing today, Jono? Oh, it froze again.
Again? Would you be able to reset it? I'll try and see.
No, it's all good. Let me... Is it a...
Take it off Wi-Fi. Should be better. Maybe it's on my end.
No, it's all good. I'll count it down and I'll just do the intro again. It's not a problem. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's up, guys? It is Dan from FightWave, and today I'm joined by somebody who I'm very excited to speak with. If you know anything about me, you know I love Aussie MMA, and today's guest is no exception to the pecking order. I had him on a few weeks back after amidst a haywire of chaos on the Australian MMA regional circuit. A lot of controversy surrounding the matchup that he was in, none by his own doing, a lot of naysayers, a lot of doubters, and rest assured, he took care of the doubters. Today I'm joined by and new HEX welterweight champion, the captain himself, Jono Micallef. How are we doing today, Jono?
I'm doing great, Dan. It's so cool to speak to you now that the dust has settled and what has transpired, and can't wait to chop it up with you.
Man, I cannot say that I am so excited that the narrative of, it's too early for him, why is Jono getting this fight, that narrative has finally been put to bed, and finally we have some good news for Jono Micallef. After what was an already unbelievable 2023, you capped it off with such an amazing performance against Joseph Luciano. Talk to me about how you're feeling and how everything's been, because I can imagine you've been over the moon for the past few weeks or so.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been just on top of the world, especially having all the people doubting me and saying that I wasn't ready. And me, in myself and my whole team knew, look, we're ready. We've been ready for this for a while now. Since the start of the year, we've been saying, I am the best welterweight in the country. And we got a chance to prove it, and prove it we did.
Absolutely. And, I went into the matchup very open-eyed. I think that was something that was very uncommon across the media. I felt like a lot of people, and no disrespect, nobody being called out in specific, but I feel like just the narrative across the scene was maybe it's a little too early for this guy. And, the whole top brunt of the conversation kind of fell on the Matt Vail, Joseph Luciano fight. But I was like, why is nobody talking about Jono Micallef? And you went in there and you silenced the doubters like I've never seen anyone silence them before. You said too early what? Too early who? You said I am the captain now, and captain is a fitting nickname for Jono Micallef. You went in there and did what you did. And in my opinion, a performance of the ages. I don't think I've seen anybody do what you did on that Saturday night to Joseph Luciano in a very long time since Carlos Prade. So talk to me just about, the build-up on that fight week, because the last few days were hectic, to say the least, with all the trash talk between Emrahon Hekimoglu and Michael Manu, and then also just the chaos surrounding the event. Finally, what did it mean for you to step in that octagon and be able to do what you do best, which is fight?
Yeah, well, first off, that fight could have gone many different ways. Joey's smashed everyone in the past, so people doubting you. There were demons that would creep in, and you'd think, is he actually Khabib? Is he going to Khabib me? But I just trusted in my training, man, and got down to it. And in the fight, just did what I do. Just meticulously break it down, slow the fight down to my pace, or speed it up need be, and we got it done. The press was very, very interesting and something very new to me, especially in front of the cameras. See, I'm used to the bickering from my siblings, but to have another man next to me who's not my sibling is something that I've got to get used to. But the dog with the loudest bark doesn't always have the hardest bite, and Michael Manu proved that he was too much for Emrahon and took him out. So, yeah.
No, yeah, that whole, I feel like it's a very unparalleled fight week to anything that you've maybe experienced before, because you look at that fight week, I love what HEX does with kind of emulating that big star under the bright lights environment with the press conferences. I feel like it's very unique. and it helps them stand out a little bit more as a promotion, but also it exposes you to a little bit of the ugly side of the fight game a little too early for comfort. Obviously, with the UFC or with a big show, that comes with it. But, on the regional scene, it's kind of something you don't see. But for better or for worse, it was a very entertaining press conference, to say the least. And, man, I got to credit you for keeping your cool, because I don't know if I could have kept my composure hearing the bickering next to me for close to 30 minutes. Credit to you for holding your composure.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, if my fight name wasn't the captain, it would probably be just composure. I think that's something that I stand by, in being composed in all things that I do in life. But in terms of HEX doing the media stuff, I think it's phenomenal for guys like myself coming up. You get a chance to get the media and sort of talk where, you spend all your time training and fighting, but you don't really get to talk and express yourself as a fighter and really get the fans and people to get to know you, as a person beneath being a fighter. So it's a perfect stepping stone in terms of getting used to that and doing it in, a relatively smaller scene, and then slowly making yourself to the UFC. And you've already, you've experienced all that before. You've experienced some chaos. Well, I definitely have now, and you slowly get into the big show and the big leagues.
No, yeah, absolutely. I love what you mentioned there. Like, obviously the composure first and foremost has to be commended, because I think when you get thrusted into that environment very early, like you mentioned, you go over to the big show and you have to kind of endure these things, and you kind of then are just kind of navigating your way through the media and kind of the ugly part of the fight game. But being kind of predisposed and, susceptible to it early and kind of learning and navigating now, it's been great to see. And especially as a young fighter, as we can tell, some fighters that goes over their head. But, with other fighters like yourself, the composure was there. You were a consummate professional, I think, the entire fight week. And I really think that the narrative of this fight kind of shaped up a little bit more as we got closer to the fight day. Between you and Joey, there was a lot of, mutual respect. And, like you mentioned, Joseph Luciano is no slouch by any means. But I wanted to ask you, just in terms of surprises, like you mentioned, the narrative around Joey a little bit is he goes in there and Khabib's his opponents. Was there anything in the fight that kind of caught you by surprise a little bit, or was it just kind of what you expected, or maybe there was something that stood out to you?
Yeah, look, that fight could have gone. I think the way it went was what was best case scenario for me in terms of the way it going. I expected Joey to be a bit heavier and stronger on top. It wasn't quite it. But I didn't expect him to try and stand and strike with me for as long as he did. So I'd say that he surprised me there. But we do, like Joey said it leading up to the fight too, they look at fighters, they break them down, and then they go at the best, the easiest route to victory. And I think that's exactly what our team does too. In any fight, regardless, we're gonna try and find the easiest path to victory, whether that be to grapple, to strike, to pick him at range, or to make it a dirty fight. So. But then again, in saying that, in the chaos of what is MMA, sometimes you can prepare for everything, and what happens, and worked out in my favor.
No, yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, you mentioned kind of the shocks or surprises. I think the most surprising part of it all was not even related to the fight, but more importantly, I think it's your dedication to making this succeed, because just a few days literally after what was the biggest fight of your career thus far, you were back at it, going back to work. And I feel like, your discipline is immeasurable. As a young fighter at only 24 years of age, you've got a discipline that a lot of other fighters, I think, would be lucky to have a tenth of it, because you went right back into work after that. You went right back to your probably the most true saying, which is brick by brick, we get a castle. Talk to me just about your maturity, just not as a fighter, but as a person, because it takes I think a very mature person to be able to smell the roses and recognize success, but also keep their head down enough and stay hungry to get right back in the lab and do everything they can to make it to that top level.
Yeah, absolutely. Discipline is something I hold very, very close to me, especially because if you have two people, one's disciplined, one's not, they can both basically put in the same amount of work, or spend the same amount of time doing that work, but they won't get the same results if they're not as disciplined. So at the end of the day, as long as you can really push yourself and be disciplined throughout that entire time of what you're doing, you can take it really far. And for me, although this was a massive fight. It was huge. I want to stay disciplined because it's not the end of the road. This was just another brick to build the castle, and there's still many more bricks to come. So in terms of staying disciplined, it's like I will stay as disciplined and diligent until I've got the castle. I can stand back and say, okay, we built this brick by brick.
And it kind of reminds me of a point when I spoke with Brad Katona, who after he won the Ultimate Fighter this year, he brought up a really interesting point, which was like, winning the Ultimate Fighter was almost like getting to base point of Eryx, Now the climb really begins. And I feel like the same thing is kind of echoed here with winning the HEX Welterweight Championship. Is like, you've kind of just reached the base point of Eryx here, where, the real work starts now in terms of defending the belt and becoming a big name and attracting the eyeballs of the UFC or any major promotion. So the fact that you stayed disciplined through it all, and, aside from a brief fishing trip, which I got to ask you about in just a moment, being able to stay disciplined, smell the roses in the moment, but get back to the lab, I feel like that's what kind of separates you from a lot of the other under 25, Australian regional scene talents. So just talk to me about, not only just being recognized as an elite talent now, but also being recognized for that level of discipline just across everybody, I think, around you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the fight name, The Captain, actually came across for me sort of leading the way for the younger guys. And for me, that means to be disciplined at all times and always show to them that this is the path, this is the path to winning. And it's sort of like I'm holding the torch for Combat One and leading the way. And that to me gives me a lot of it really actually motivates me to push and to stay disciplined and dedicated, and like you said, I'm still only just we've only just driven to Eryx. We've still got to start the climb now. So we've got to push.
No, yeah, absolutely. But no shortage of just, taking a little bit of a break with the misses and taking a time to reset. I always like to see, I always love seeing fighters that kind of take a moment to decompress, because that's a high stress environment, amongst the highest of high stress environments, to go in there, fight, go 25 minutes with one of the best in the region. And on top of that, have all the pressure of fight week. I can imagine just the brain rattling, going to 10 different places at once up until after the fight, where you can finally breathe a little bit. Talk to me about just some of the ability to rest and take some relaxation for a few days before ultimately going back into it. What was that like to finally settle down a little bit, have some time with the missus, go fishing with the boys, which I know you've probably been ecstatic and waiting for after a long training camp. What was that time like to kind of decompress a little bit?
It's been great, just to, like you said, catch up with the missus and really spend some quality time with her. It's good because it allows you to, once you've finished all that and you're getting back into it, you're fresh, you're good to go. You're ready to sprint again. But yeah, and how good that it's right at the end of Christmas too, get a bit more time off work, be able to spend a bit more time in the gym. But another big thing for me is skill acquisition. So slowly, when you're at a camp, that's when you really develop new skills and you start to develop yourself as a fighter. I'm still only 24, so my actual style, I don't even know what my style is yet. I'm developing that as we go. And as you get time without the stress of fight camps where you have to be perfect, that's the time that you can really sort of, I guess, discover what you're capable of, and try new things and not being afraid to try your second, third, fourth level of thing instead of always just doing your number one, what you're good at. So it's awesome, and what a position to be in.
Absolutely. I love that idea. Like you mentioned, just still experimenting, finding your flow, finding your style. I think that's very important with the regional scene, to not lose sight of, you're still not at your best peak version. You're still kind of figuring this thing out, and you're still kind of looking a little bit to find who you are in this sport and where you belong. And it's a great mindset to have early on. And not just that, but also, to be recognized amongst the elite and the creme de la creme of Australia's welterweight division right now. Shortly after HEX Fight Series 28, Eternal dropped the bombshell announcement of the 4 title fights. And among those title fights, we had Alden Bates versus Caleb Rideout. I just spoke to Caleb, actually. More importantly, I think the scene right now with you and, Alden, with you as HEX welterweight champion, Caleb Rideout versus Alden Bates for the vacant Eternal welterweight champion, right now being a welterweight in Australia doesn't seem so bad with the level of competition and bodies to really test yourself. What do you make of just like right now the scene at welterweight and being able to have so many high caliber matchups potentially come to fruition very soon?
Yeah, it's awesome because you've always got direction, and if you don't get the call up, then you have someone to fight. You know, it's not like you're just sitting on the sidelines waiting to find a matchup. It's great. It really is. The only issue I have at the moment is when fighters have to sign contracts, they can only fight for a single promotion because it's so hard. You say you have a fight, 2 weeks out, it gets pulled and you've signed to that promotion. You can't fight for another promotion that could potentially be, 2 or 3 weeks after that. And you can sort of keep the wheels turning and stay in camp. But luckily for me, I'm not in that position. So it's good, so just sort of stay ready. If anything falls out, then jump in, or take the time to sit back and, pick the right match up.
Absolutely. It's kind of like you mentioned, it's a little bit of a head scratcher, the exclusivity contracts at regional scene. It's very hard, especially when the talent pool in Australia is only still developing. It's kind of hard to see fighters signing exclusivity contracts and then fights that should be being made are being made, a year and a half, 2 years later, a little bit too late, kind of eerily reminiscent of boxing at its current stage right now. But more importantly, I just think the opposition right now at welterweight, it's the best it's ever been. I feel like the opponent pool and the talent pool, it looks great, and I'm excited for Eternal 82 more importantly. But I gotta ask you, because I don't think the fans would let me kind of be without asking this. Matt Vale, I spoke with Jacob Watts, right? I was like, look, obviously I understand the reasoning behind Jono versus Joseph Luciano. Two Melbourne guys fighting at Festival Hall, sold out arena. It would not be a more perfect setting to have at Festival Hall than two local guys scrapping it out for 25 minutes. But then Jacob Watts announced HEX 30 in New Zealand, and of course there's one New Zealander that everybody on the Australia regional scene, on the New Zealand regional scene was talking about. He got unduly, removed or kind of written out of the equation here in this fight. And I spoke to you last time. I'm like, look, I think that fight is very much present. I think you'd be down to take that fight. What are your thoughts on, obviously now that the dust is settled, the prospective matchup with Matt Vale that people are going to be calling for and asking, saying, Joey's out of the equation, Jono Micallef versus Matt Vale. What are your thoughts on that?
The thing for me with the Matt Vale fight is, and I'm first off, I would 100% take that fight. I will definitely back myself against Matt Vale. But the thing with that fight is, it's been quite a few years since Matt Vale's been active. So it sort of puts you in a position where it's like, if you do fight and beat Matt Vale, does that then put you in a position to take it further and to go onto the big show? Because that's when those questions sort of come up, because that is the end goal. But in terms of that, man, if that fight was to present itself, 100% I'd be taking that fight. But at the moment, I'm sort of like trying to work like as closely as I can to getting that UFC shot. I do think that I need one more fight, 100%. Unless they take me in, I'll run to them in open arms. But yeah, it's just a matter of which fights take place first, I suppose.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I understand that from a logistics perspective, that's 100% the move to make. Like right now, you've just beaten the number one guy, I think, in Australia at welterweight. And more importantly, at your age and at the record that you present, any major promotion would be lucky to have you. So kind of just taking it day by day and seeing what kind of presents itself. Like you mentioned, the possibility of having to do one more is very much there. But like you mentioned, if they come right now with a contender series or even an opportunity I wanted to get your thoughts on with the PFL going over to Australia. Would that entertain you at all with the PFL's talks of coming over to Australia and having shows there? Is that something that interests you, having a fight or two with them potentially?
Yeah, definitely got some interest in that, especially the PFL showing to bring better pay, which is always good. You're always looking for that. But the main goal for me at the moment is UFC. That's sort of, there's, they bring a certain amount of noise that the other promotions don't quite, that they're not quite matching that just yet. But like I said before, at the end of the day, if it does mean you're going to fight for another promotion 1 or 2 times and then get into the big show, yeah. So I'm not closed off to that at all. No.
Absolutely. And I feel like right now, a lot of people were like, oh, Jono's getting fed to the wolves and whatnot, that whole narrative. But now you've become the A side, my friend, Now, everything that I feel like happens with a matchup surrounding you is going to be on your terms, because you just went in on everyone else's terms and completely silenced the critics. So I wanted to give you your roses there, Jono, and thank you so much for your time. You've been nothing but kind to myself and, just the FightWave supporters at home, giving us this opportunity to catch up with you. So I wanted to thank you for that. And also, once again, congratulate you on a phenomenal performance. It goes without saying that you've done a remarkable job thus far, and your discipline, I think, is immeasurable to any of the other under 25 fighters in Australia. It truly is something to behold. The discipline that you have and the love that you have for this sport is second to none. So I wanted to give you your roses there and congratulate you. And also, just on a final note, 2023 is we're a month away from 2023 being over. It's as good as done. But 2024, I think, is going to kickstart a massive campaign for Jono Micallef. Like you mentioned, possibly a fight away from the UFC, a fight or two away. That is very much on the horizon. What can we expect to see from Jono Micallef in 2024? And, any message for this Jono Micallef, the captain supporters at home?
Yeah, I actually haven't looked too much into 2024. Maybe fighting on March in the festival hall card on HEX. Maybe see me in Auckland. We'll just have to sit back as a team. We haven't quite gotten together and spoken about exactly what we're going to be doing start of 2024, but that chat will definitely happen, and hopefully I get to talk to you near then. In terms of all the supporters and everything, I said it to the media when leading up to the fight, I'm just so grateful to be in a position to be able to fight and show that I'm the best in the country, and I got that. And now in the position, I'm still like, it's sort of like I've got to pinch myself sometimes to really realize, and have all the people look up to me that do look up to me, and all the congratulations I've gotten has been honestly incredible. It's been a wild week since the fight, but yeah, just thank you to everyone and sending you lots of love.
Absolutely. And, I'm very much so excited to see what the future holds for you, my friend. It's always a privilege to sit here and speak with you and have you on the FightWave brand. One of those guys that I just know is bound for big things in this sport. Whether it's PFL, the UFC, ONE, I know wherever Jonathan Micallef goes, your mark is going to be left and your imprint on the sport in Australia and MMA as a whole is going to be felt. So I want to thank you so much for your time. To the fans at home watching, check out Jono Micallef on social media. I want to be linking his socials in the description down below. You might want to be sponsoring the new welterweight champion of HEX Fight Series, because I'm telling you, the ceiling for this young man is very bright. Huge shout out to the sponsors of FightWave. Thank you guys. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. Check out Jono's socials in the description once again. It's been me, Dan, from FightWave. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Do be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day, guys.